back in the news once again.
Every
Travel
week.
ban. Yep, it's gonna be for a while now. This is round 3 of us talking about it.
Yep.
Um,
Out of 4 episodes.
I know. Yeah, pretty much. But so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna give a real quick timeline of it so that we have all the facts going into it, and then we can kind of make predictions and see where we're gonna go with it.
Gotcha.
So if anyone doesn't know, at this point, Trump issued an executive order banning travel from 7 countries for 90 days. It also bars refugees admissions for 120 days. This was met with mass protest from the left. A federal judge, Ann Donnelly of New York, blocked part of the executive order. Then federal judge from Massachusetts, Allison Burroughs, blocked a part of the order. Senate Republicans tried to introduce 2 bills, which they would debate to rescind the order, but Republicans blocked that. And then Trump went ahead and
Republicans blocked that?
Republicans blocked it from being even brought up to the floor. And then, of course, Trump followed Attorney General Sally Yates. Trump then did allow expedited clearance for green card holders, which was the first real kind of win for Democrats on the issue. Federal Massachusetts judge Nathaniel Gordon did not extend the temporary restraining order, overturning the block by Allison Burroughs, which was the first court win for Trump. Then Judge James Robar blocked the ban nationwide. So that was the big one.
Right. That was last week's.
Right. And then, Federal Appeals Court denied Trump's request to resume the ban, taking it to the 9th District Court, who had both sides make their cases. It was a 3-judge panel who then went to rule against reinstating the ban.
In a 3-0 decision.
Yep. Then D. Trump said, well, I'll just probably write a brand new order. But at the same time, an anonymous judge from the 9th Circuit Court has asked the other 25 judges to do a vote to hear the cases again, in which case it'll go to an 11-member panel rather than just the 3, and we could get a new ruling on it. It's called an in-box session. The main issue that seems to be tripping Trump up is the travel ban, not the refugee ban. So that's where we're at right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that if Trump is smart, he's going to separate it, just issue a different executive order banning the refugees, because no one seems to have a problem with that. That seems to be well within his authority to do so. Get that out of the way, and then reword your thing a little bit.
I wouldn't say nobody has a problem with that.
Well, obviously people do, but no one can shut it down, really.
Right. I bet you, yeah, there's a lot of people that have a problem with it. But legally, that part can't be stopped.
Right.
So.
Well, I thought he had a pretty solid standing on the first part, but apparently all the judges are saying not so much.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think their issue with it has been that he can't provide adequate proof that we need it. And
we don't need it. Do you think we need it?
I said yes, I do think we need it.
You think we need it? You think it's as necessary?
I think that it could, just because we're not getting attacked at the moment, the world is primed for war. These things are happening. All of these other countries are dealing with these problems. Our oceans can only insulate us for so long. And in history, we see that time and time again, where we think this will protect us so we don't need to protect ourselves further. And then it happens. If ISIS wasn't around, I don't think we would need this. And I don't think we would be doing this. But ISIS is around. And until we can get rid of them.
We would be doing this whether or not ISIS was around. We would be doing this because Al-Qaeda would be around. Boko Haram would be around.
Yeah, but they're not stealing anyone from the U.S., we've seen ISIS-inspired attacks
Stop putting people
on
in the U.S. in their countries.
Soil. What?
They're not stealing anybody from here.
No, they're not.
So they're, look, the fact of the matter is, travel ban, it is not necessary. You pretend these oceans are lakes, and they're not lakes.
I'm saying there's a lot of countries that used to be third world that are becoming first world countries, and they can get around our oceans.
The fact of the matter is, we don't have a terrorism problem in the United States, and when we do have it is from people who are already here.
But we have a terrorism problem in the world.
We have a terrorism problem in the world, but we obviously have a process set up that's working well enough that we don't have.
It worked well enough in the past, but who's to say it's going to work in the future? And all they're saying is, let's take 90 days to reassess the programs and see if they're adequate.
So what we're saying though is, let's clamp down an iron fist on a problem that's non-existent, that we already have.
If we see it coming off in the distance, just because it hasn't happened in 12 years,
we
or
don't
whatever
see
you want to say.
We don't see it coming. We see it coming to countries with that terrorism can walk to.
Well, obviously, yeah, it's much easier. They don't have
Right.
the
So
oceans
we don't
to
see it
block
here.
them.
So our oceans do go into a big are
Yeah.
a big part of our security, right? Like they
Yeah,
are.
Mexico and Canada ain't attacking us.
Right. So we're surrounded by countries that aren't attacking us and water.
Obviously,
that will keep-
homegrown terrorism is the main threat to
which you're
America.
not going to stop with a refugee
No, you're
ban
not. This
or a
isn't
travel
designed.
ban.
This isn't designed to stop homegrown terrorism with these
Well,
inspirational
maybe
attacks.
since homegrown terrorism is the only terrorism we have an issue with, we should
At the
focus
moment.
on that.
Well, yeah, but what can you do about that? Limit everyone's internet access? You can't do that.
Well, I agree with you.
Right.
But
You just have to hope.
all we're
that-
doing is instituting a feel-good measure that only makes half of the people in the country feel good, and it does nothing for any of the people in the country.
I don't see it like that at all.
I think
that
facts see it like that. I think statistics see it like that.
yeah, like I said, there haven't been attacks yet, so
Right.
it's real easy.
So
I bet the day before World War I or World War II, the French were like, "We're cool. Our army's totally good. We're definitely not going to lose in 1 week to the Germans. They can't cross the Ardennes. Who can get through there with tanks? It's impossible." Guess what? It was, and they got through.
Yeah, guess
And
what?
then they were done within a week.
There wasn't an ocean between them.
No, there wasn't.
No,
but
there
it's the same
wasn't.
equivalency. It's
It
saying
is
this
not
will
the same
protect us.
equivalency at all.
There are different methods that they can get in, and obviously they are working with these other countries. We see North Korea just testing more missiles. Recently, they're within the next 4 years, they're gonna be able to reach us.
North Korea?
North Korea,
Okay.
that's gonna be a situation that we're gonna have to deal with. And who are they in cahoots with? All these people from these countries. With China, obviously, is a
The
big
same people that Russia is in cahoots with?
right.
Okay. We
Yeah.
should be friends with them.
Well, we shouldn't be attacking, having them attack us too. We can go on and on about the war. I think that the world is primed for war, and right now we would be on the losing side, in my opinion. We have a very good army,
We will, I think.
but
that
our
we will-
allies don't.
We will be.
Every one of our allies just doesn't spend any money on their militaries. They've come from the point of view that World War II was the war to end all
So
wars.
w- so-
It's not going to happen.
So then we'll solve that by teaming up with the one guy that would love nothing else than America to fall off the face of the
I don't
map.
see, I don't see it that way. I think Russia wants to do what's best for Russia, but the Americans and Russia can help each other out quite a bit. And if we can convey that to Putin and show that having us as both as allies can help each other out, like I said, I want him to commit to taking out ISIS jointly with the United States. Boots on the ground, the whole deal. That's what I would like to see happen. Then I would think that we both have sufficient skin in the game. I don't want to see them just release sanctions from Russia for no damn reason, because that
Well,
doesn't
now
help
they're getting
us.
Edward Snowden back, so maybe that's a reason to
Yeah.
lift sanctions.
Is he going to...
I don't know. Russia said, "Hey, we'll give him back if you want him back."
Oh, shit.
To Donald Trump.
Well, that
A-
sucks for Edward Snowden.
as a
Maybe you
show-
shouldn't have gone to those
as
two
a show
countries.
well, yeah, right. Donald Trump's policy on leaks is like this guy will be
It's totally fine.
teaching college classes in a week. Like he'll be fine. So they're not going to do anything with him.
Right.
Even after Donald Trump disagreed with Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, being
Right.
released from jail. I don't see Edward Snowden going to jail, and I don't
No.
see a relationship with Russia being a good thing. I think
I
that
see it,
you're
the
not-
potential for it being
I
a
think
good
you're
thing.
giving Putin credit for being more honest than he actually is.
Well, none of our
Uh,
allies have ever, none of the allies that have ever mattered have truly been honest, if you want to put it that way. Like they're all,
Matter is a perspective
Yeah.
thing.
and especially
You
during
would
times
say that
of
our
war.
alliance with Germany probably doesn't matter. I would disagree.
I think
with
it
you.
matters. Yeah, it totally matters. I mean, everyone there, obviously, the European Union is giant
Mm-hmm.
economically, and they're, basically one of the best countries off in the European Union, or at least they were. I know they're not doing as well now.
Right.
And we'll see. We'll see what happens with that whole election coming up and how the world changes. But the world, I'm glad to say that Europe is becoming more conservative. So we're starting to get people that are already our allies that are starting to see the world in the way that we see
it makes more sense for Europe to be more conservative because Europe has a problem. It
I
doesn't.
don't understand the mentality that the left has that we've watched this country all do these measures and have it blow up in their face, but it'll be totally different for us. I don't get that mentality.
No, it's not. Well, it will be different for us because they don't have the same things. We're not playing on the same field, right? Like, they don't have a big ocean between them. We have that on our field. That's a really good asset to have.
It's a decent asset. It's not going to save
we have
everything.
a 3-year vetting process as is, which is
Right.
why we don't have a.
Well, here's
which
the
is why
problem we
don't-
have. It's so easy
if
to
I don't
just
have
say-
diabetes, should I never eat sugar ever? Like, no, I think that you
They should.
can.
They would. Actually,
You
doctors
should
are going to tell you to probably not eat so much sugar and whatnot, so
I
that
know
you
they're
don't
gonna
get
tell you
diabetes in the future.
not to eat so much sugar. What I'm
Yeah.
saying is they're not going to tell you not to have a grain of sugar. What they're going to tell you
Right.
is to watch your sugar, vet your sugar.
For 3 years, you watch that candy bar
Right.
until it
And
gets
then-
good enough for your system.
Right. And
No.
then you allow it in.
No, and that's the thing is that we're not saying that. We're not saying indefinitely. We're saying for 90 days, let's stop things, put a halt, take a look at the. I think the new administration should be able to look at the process
So,
and say, is this adequate? I know
let's-
that you like to say that it's adequate.
So let's say this. If the Democrats are able to keep this fight going for 90 days,
Right.
shouldn't you be looking at this? Right? What's stopping you from looking at it now? You don't need
Right.
a halt to look at it.
No,
look
you
at it.
you don't. Well, I mean, there's protocol
Okay.
in place. So if there's a hole in the protocol, then
So then you're saying that essentially you agree you don't need to halt this to assess
I would
it.
think you don't need to halt it to assess it, but at the same time, if there was a hole in the protocol, you wouldn't be safeguarded against it for the next 90 days.
No, you wouldn't, but you won't be after
Well, it
the
depends
90
on if they
days.
find it and they fix it. I don't know.
If they find it, if they fix it.
Right.
If they don't find it, then you're back to square one, and this whole thing was pointless.
Yeah, it was. Well, at least we would have checked through it, and that's the thing. So I don't.
Do your checking.
Yeah.
Don't-
And I've
don't
I've
put
said
up your
before,
walls.
I
Like
don't
that-
agree with the necessity for this travel ban. I don't agree with it. I just don't think that it's my place to say whether we do or don't. I think the administration should be able to take a look at it. They're not, you know what I mean? They're not doing anything.
You're not
that's-
buying into that whole Donald Trump statement that, like, oh, it's been a week and a half, and I've seen some papers, and oh my God, terrorism
No,
is
even
like
though,
rampant
yeah,
through the
even though
United
I
States.
voted for,
You don't know what I know, so just trust me. No,
even though I voted for Donald Trump, and I do think that he can do a lot of good for the country, I'm not in any habit of trusting him. I mean, the dude lies 50% of the time, so I'm not gonna just take
fake
it on
news.
face
Fake
value.
news. Mitch is full of fake news.
I'm full of fake news, except for this, which was totally wrong, but I'm going to say it's right. Yeah, so he's kind of lost me on that aspect because guess what? You've just spent 3 weeks lying.
Right.
Maybe don't do that, and I'll trust you a little bit more.
Right.
So I don't take it on face value, but I do think because I look at the rest of the world and I see these other attacks that terrorism is an issue.
So do you think that as far as the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals goes, do you think that they came to the right conclusion? Because they're
According to what happened in the court, I would say yes.
the reasoning
Grudgingly, because apparently they said that the lawyers that were arguing for the ban just could not come up with an argument. They
Right.
couldn't come up with a compelling reason to do it. And to me, and like I said, it's easy because they want facts and statistics on what hasn't happened yet. You can't do that. So
Well,
when you try
you
to,
can't just inevitably, or you can't just
this is a precautionary measure. Yeah, I mean,
you can't
by definition,
infinitely
there are no
say
stats on it.
Something is going to all you're doing is fear mongering. You realize that something might happen sometime,
But
someday,
there's
some
actually
way.
there's actually something to be
somewhere
afraid
in
of.
the
We're not
world.
saying like, hey, you know
Look,
what? I think that I don't know, the Swedish might actually attack us when there's literally no precursor
Someday
for
somebody
that.
might kick in my apartment door and
I'm
run
gonna do
in
it, and then I'm gonna prove you wrong. You should have
shooting bullets everywhere, like just spraying the walls.
Right, but we do have a terrorism problem.
well,
that's diluting the actual
Here's the thing, though.
threat,
I'm
and
not. I'm not buying ADT because no one's after me.
Well, we also live in Missouri, so not only do we have oceans, but we're in the damn center of the country.
We got
so-
guns.
and we got guns. We will kill you.
So
I don't have a gun. Shit, I gotta go buy one.
No, I just don't. I just do not. I don't see the point in the ban. I do think that I agree with you that as far as what the Ninth Circuit was looking at last week, I think they came to the right conclusion.
Right. I'd like to see an 11 panel. I want to see it do the MBOC, session and see what they come up with and see if they make different arguments. Like, fire those guys. I've seen a lot of, lawyers that come in and we think they have an ironclad case and they just fuck
Here's
it
what's going to
up.
be hilarious, though, is that Neil Gorsuch eventually, probably in May, will get appointed to the Supreme Court.
Mm-hmm.
And what would be hilarious is if this is still going on, and Neil Gorsuch goes the Justice Roberts route and just goes against Donald Trump and just smacks him in the face.
Yep.
Which I could see that happening because
you never know where
because
they're gonna go.
dude, while he is super conservative, definitely an Antonin Scalia.
And I'm conservative, and I
seems
don't agree with
reasonable
the
at points at
yeah.
times.
I don't
So-
agree 100% with the travel ban. I know it probably comes off that I do. I understand why someone else might, and especially the president, who it's his job
But
to
I
keep us
think-
safe.
I think
I could see why he might think this is the best course of action. I personally don't think so.
I think
but
it is a disservice to
you
call
and your
it-
phone again.
to call it a Muslim ban.
All right, we're back.
All right, I apologize for that. So again, like we stated at the top of the show, I'm having a baby, so my phone's not on silent today.
No.
And
There might be a break or two.
When she calls me, I'm going to go, oh God, hopefully she's not in labor. It's not time. So
You got 12 hours, son.
So yeah, I do. I really do. We're really going in at 7:00 tomorrow morning.
Babies are easy. Don't even worry about
Oh
it.
yeah, no problem. Don't think about it.
I've had one. Listen to everything I say.
Yeah. So if there's any more ridiculous interruptions in the show that obviously seemed like they were edited horribly, that's because they weren't edited. They were stopped and then restarted. So anyway, my point basically is that Mitch is wrong about everything. I just like I don't know. So let's go back into the Ninth Circuit. I do think that. Here's what I would think.
Bunch of liberals.
I think that even with an 11 panel or 11
It
judge
is-
panel,
yeah.
it's a liberal court and it'll probably go the same way.
I would be interested.
It may not go 11-0.
Yeah, and I do think it's important to note that this guy who brought it to a vote or suggested the vote stayed anonymous, so he didn't even feel comfortable coming and putting his name up forward
Well, right.
to his own colleagues or whatnot and everything.
I would, yeah, but I would say that's more to the American public than it is to the
Yeah.
to his colleagues, because people are acting crazy right now.
They are.
And so I wouldn't want to put my name out for it or
That's why we made a
against it.
podcast. That was smart.
Right. So, but the thing is, I don't have any influence in the decision. So
Right.
I can tell you that all you people that are for this ban, you're just trying to hug yourself with arms made of walls. And I don't
Proverbial
agree.
walls.
I don't agree with the reasoning.
I don't per se agree with this reasoning, but I also understand that I'm an asshole that doesn't have all the facts, and that
I
there
have
is
all the facts. Just listen to me.
there is a lot of terrorism in the world right now because there are these terrorist organizations that, for whatever fucking reason, we decided not to put a stop to,
Right.
and so now we're dealing with them at a much more involved scale than we would have had to if we just would have gone in and taken care of it.
Yeah. No.
I still
mean,
think we need to go in and take care of it because we've just given it away. We gave it to Russia. We gave it to
I agree that
Bashar al-Assad. No one, Republican or Democrat, wanted Bashar al-Assad to still be in power.
No.
Like, we all agreed on that, and by doing what we did, that's what we have. Not only do we have Bashar al-Assad, but we have a Russian-backed Bashar al-Assad who is still supposed to be our ally. Even
you
under
think-
the Democrats,
All
he
right.
was supposed to be our
So
ally.
let's say in a perfect world, like the Russian United States relationship does work out. Putin and Trump are actually going to work together and all this stuff, and we
Golden
do.
Shower's gonna bring us together,
and,
man.
And let's say that you get your wish, and the two teams join up and take out ISIS and more or less eradicate ISIS.
Right.
All right, let me bring you to a new question. At that point that all of that is done and we're friends with Russia and ISIS is gone, can we still go back into Syria and get rid of Bashar al-Assad?
No, I don't think so. Like I said, we bought him. With our inactivity, we have bought Bashar al-Assad. He's not going anywhere.
So if he goes somewhere, do you think ISIS would come back?
No, I don't think so. I don't think, because Bashar al-Assad has nothing to do with ISIS, really.
Right.
He just was killing his own people. They tried doing their own revolution to get him out of power. It didn't work out.
Yeah, what's crazy is, and the reason I asked that question is because there's a story that came out this week about some of the goings on under Assad, and like obviously horror stories. We all know a lot of them, but this one really, really kind of made me go, "Damn, like this guy is the epitome of, like, worse than Saddam Hussein, probably worse than
Yeah.
Gaddafi.
I mean, they're all bad guys.
They're all bad guys, but like the story that came out this week was that, so he'd take these political prisoners, right? People that spoke out against
The rebels.
the rebels, right? But he would take, but he would take guys and their family members that like were not involved in violence, were not involved in protests. They just were on the opposite side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he would take them and imprison them, and then in the middle of the night, the prisoners or the prison guards would come down and take 500 people at a time, and tell them that they were going to be medically examined. Right? They would take them into the basement of this prison where they would sit in front of a military judge, and they would all be sentenced to death. They would
Tried
all
for
be
treason.
They would all be hanged together and then shipped to local government-run hospitals where the coroner would pronounce them dead from fume inhalation or like heart failure.
That's
or,
pretty fucked
or
up.
stuff like this. And so what I wonder is, in that nice Republican scenario where Russia and the United States are playing on the same side, to benefit each other, is it still okay to go in and take out Assad? Because Assad's a bad guy. Whether
he's a bad guy.
Whether we're
Again, I still say we bought him, and if we do want to take him out later, it comes at the risk of alienating the Russians and a few other people. I think that, because I didn't think that we should have backed Bashar al-Assad, obviously, but I don't think we should have backed the rebels. It should have been us. We should have gone in and said, we're the power here.
Well,
we're ousting him.
You and I had that. I mean, that was one prediction that I made 6 years ago. It was like, why don't we just go in and
Just
stop
arm
this?
the rebels.
Well, yeah, we got to that point, but I don't think, like, we could.
I never wanted to arm the rebels. I didn't think that was a good idea, because who the fuck are these guys?
But we
And
could have
just-
gone in with the Air Force, and we could have blown up their.
We needed a base, because we did do that. We did the drone strikes, and Obama, was killing people all over the place, because that's just what happens in war. Whenever you're not 100% right, we see what happens with that. But without having that intel, without having a base, soldiers on the ground, people that can collaborate with everyone else to try to take these guys out, it was all for naught. I mean, we basically said, well, it's their fight. They should be doing it.
Right.
And I understand that, but at the same time, we knew they weren't up for the task. It was obvious that these guys weren't going to get the job done.
So
All it took was for Russia to come in and say, we're going to come in and throw our clout around. We're not backing the rebels, because duh. So
Right.
we're going to back Bashar al-Assad and just end the conflict. And that's what they've done. And Putin is just so popular in Russia right now because of that, because he's showing power. He's making Russia great again.
right.
He's restoring it to its former glory, at least in their eyes. It's not the path that we would take.
No, and it's the path that we're going to look. I don't think it turns out good for us. I don't think Russia can be the former Russia if the United States.
Yeah, we really got to square off. Are we okay with not being a superpower? And this is something that Mitt Romney argued in his
Well,
book.
we're gonna not be a superpower either way. But
Well, we need to be, is my argument.
I'd rather it be China than Russia.
I don't want China either. These guys China is the worst country for environmental rights, workers' rights. These guys don't give a fuck. All they care about is trying to make China even.
What they don't do that Russia does, and apparently the United States, according to Donald Trump, is poison their political enemies.
Hey, dude, Beijing and whatnot is in Hong Kong. They are messed up. Those guys do go missing, and their political
Hong Kong's
opponents.
not. Well, Hong Kong is part of China.
Yeah.
That Donald Trump reluctantly admitted this week.
Oh, one China policy. But yeah, don't think that China's any
it's weird
different.
too that, speaking of things that Donald Trump has already flip-flopped on, NATO's okay now. All of a sudden, NATO's great.
Well, we have Nikki Haley in there. Or no, it's just in the UN. I don't know.
Unbelievable.
Like the NATO is, yeah.
Republicans, be ready to be let down by Donald Trump.
We already have been. I mean, that's just the common course, because I don't think Trump realized that the president doesn't have all the damn power in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think he's going to have to get used to that idea that there are checks and balances. People do stop you in different forms and in different ways. They have different methods of doing so.
Right. And I'll say, as far as, this topic goes, the Muslim ban, which it is, and let's not call it a travel ban
It's
anymore.
not a Muslim
because
ban.
when you tell
I will not
when
give you that point ever.
Well, when you tell Christians in Iraq that they're allowed to come in, but Muslims aren't, it becomes a Muslim ban,
No, it's
not a
persecuted-
travel
It's a
ban.
persecuted group. We've
Oh
done
yeah,
the
because
exact same
Muslims
thing for
aren't being
Muslims.
persecuted in the Middle East.
Yes, they are, but it's
Yes, they are.
But it's much more difficult to discern from Christians because Christians
they're
are being
brown?
attacked. No, because everyone there is Muslim. That's like coming in. If there was a
So if everybody there is Muslim, so much
Not
so
everyone
that
there, obviously,
so if the majority of people are Muslim, so much so that
Yeah.
it's hard to discern them. How do you discern a Christian? Because they're white?
no, because they claim that they're a Christian. and
Okay,
they go to
so
these
then if
Christian
it's
groups.
as easy if being part of a religion
Are
is
you-
as easy as claiming
Are
that
you
you're part
denouncing
of a
that
religion.
Christians are being persecuted in these states?
No,
Do you
I'm,
think that's not happening?
no. Are you discounting that Muslims are being persecuted in these states more?
Of course they are, because it's a civil war within their own area. They're trying to wipe out the
Okay,
moderate Muslims.
so when good Muslims
It's not a Muslim ban though, because obviously, if it was a Muslim ban, then all countries of Muslim origin and majority Muslim
is a
would
Muslim
be
ban
banned.
from those countries in the list.
It's a travel ban from those countries. They happen
Unless
to be
you're a
majority
Christian.
Muslim. Yeah, because then you're getting
Okay,
persecuted.
so it
and we
is a
use
Muslim
It's
ban
the same thing that we've
was
done.
put on those countries.
No, it is not.
If you're a Christian, you can travel here.
No, you're going to be vetted, but we're going to have an expedited way to get you back in because you're being a persecuted
So
group.
you have to be vetted, only we're going to loosen the rules on our vetting if you're a Christian.
because there aren't a lot of radical Christians
well,
right
then
now,
if I'm
especially from these
then
areas.
if
We
I'm
have
a
radical
crazy
Islamists
if I'm
from
a
this
crazy
area.
Islamist from Somalia, I'm just claiming Christianity.
Yeah, that they probably will try to do that, and that's why hopefully we'll vet them and get them out. But we do
So
need to
then
try
you
to
would
take
think
the
then
extended
that
measures
we
to try to
need
get them
a
through.
3-year vetting process for Christians as well.
I would think. Well, it depends. If we need to look at them, I think 3 years alone is a little bit too long, depending on it. I know that
Whether you're Muslim or Christian.
whether you're Muslim or not, 3 years seems excessive unless you're really going to go through. I don't know what their process is, and I don't know how they do it.
Okay.
Regardless, Christians are being persecuted. That is actually happening, and
So are
just like
Muslims.
every other, well, not to the same extent, and
To a bigger extent.
no, because it's different.
Statistically.
It's within itself. It's contained within itself. So if it's a Christian that's being persecuted, which they are, obviously,
So
we can try to
if-
get that away. But the Muslims that are being persecuted oftentimes have ties. They have family members that are also intermingled. Let's say you have an
All right,
uncle or
so
something
let's-
that is joining
let's
this
just
group.
flip.
You
let's
got to
just-
be a little bit
let's
more
just flip
stringent
this.
on them.
If Protestants and Catholics are killing each other in Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
should one side be? What should the vetting process be for Protestants?
It depends on what the
and
majority
Catholics?
is. If there was a majority Catholic,
But Muslims should have an easier go of things.
what do you mean?
Muslim refugees fleeing.
Fleeing from that fight? Yeah. Because
Yeah?
they're not
You
part of the
think so?
they're not part of the conflict there. They're not instigating the conflict. They're not the ones that are perpetuating it.
I think anybody, personally, I think that anybody who's not part of that conflict should be
Can you agree
treated
with me?
the
It's a
same
little
way.
bit harder to discern if you're from, because this is radical Islamists that we're dealing with. It's a little bit harder to discern if you're Islamic
If you-
from Christian
if you're
part of that
if-
organization.
I will agree that if you're coming from a Western point of view, yes, because Western people see brown people and see brown people.
We don't
I
see
think-
brown people.
I
It just
think
so
that
happens that
when-
the conflict right
I
now
think
involves
that
brown
here's
people.
the thing that I think. I think that if somebody in the Donald Trump administration or if somebody in the government that is put in control of making these checks on these people,
Mm-hmm.
if you see a white guy show up at the gate, you assume that he's a Christian. If you see a brown guy, you assume that he's a Muslim. Are there any brown Christians in the Middle East?
I'm sure there are.
Probably so. Do they get treated the same way as the white
that's why you
Christians
have
in the
to
Middle
vet
East?
them.
You do have to vet them. Nobody's disagreeing
You
that
can
you
come
have
up
to
with
vet them.
whatever your bias is when you first see them coming to the gate. That's one thing.
So you think that if I claim Christianity,
I would
I
want
should be
everyone to
vetted
be vetted.
easier?
What's that?
If I claim Christianity, I should be vetted easier.
No, I do think when you're coming from this area, which has radical Islamic ties, that you're probably not as a big of a suspect as being part of that group if you're Christian. That makes sense because it's not radical Christians
But-
doing it.
Right, but we both acknowledge that Christians don't all come in the same
No, they
shape
don't. That's why you
and
vet them.
size. Right. So if I claim Christianity, no matter
Mm-hmm.
what I look like, the vetting process should be easier than if I claim Islam.
Not necessarily. It should be expedited. It should take priority because you want to get those people out quickly because they are the ones
Well,
that
if
are...
I'm a terrorist, just claim Christianity.
Well, then you get vetted, and then we say, well, Mr. Dude, you've got like 800 relatives that are in this thing. Oh, trust me, I'm different. not good enough. You don't get to come in. Or we come in and say, oh, Mr. Christian, what do you do? I love Jesus. He's real cool. And then they go, okay, you don't have any other ties to it. Your families are fine. Expedite, go
So
through.
then let's use another scenario. If the Phelps...
I'm coming to think that you just hate Christians.
No, I don't hate Christians. It's not about that. I'm trying to show that you're only considering one side of the argument.
No, I don't think I am.
And I'm trying to show that if you say that it's a travel ban,
Which it is.
then it is a travel ban for everybody from that region.
And it is, isn't it?
No, it's
They just
not.
get expedited reviews on their on the vetting process. So they still can't come in until they get vetted. Therefore, it is still a travel ban from this area.
As long as they're all getting vetted under the same process, okay.
They are
that's
getting
fine.
vetted, but they get expedited because they're a persecuted group. And we would do the same for any other persecuted
Well, then
group. We have done
I'm
the same
calling
thing.
for all refugees who are not bad guys to claim Christianity.
Go for it. Convert. If they don't really care that much, then just go
You don't
for
need to
it.
convert. All you have to do is say that you're a Christian.
Well, then they're going to look back and say, what's all this Quran doing in your house and whatnot?
Okay, well then it is
I just really like it.
then
you
it
know?
is a Muslim ban.
No, it's not.
My mom was raised me Catholic, right?
Mhm.
So I'm sure that there is Catholic stuff around my house.
Right.
I'm not a Catholic.
Well, I'm not either, really.
I'm not in anything. So if I said to somebody that I'm not a Catholic, could you come find a rosary or a scapular in my
Yeah.
house and say,
And if
oh,
it-
yes, you are?
And if it was a radical Catholic problem, could you see why we would want to vet you a little bit harder when you saying that you do not have any ties to Catholicism and then finding these objects around you or in the vetting process?
But I'm a good guy, right? Like
you might be saying that, but
No, I'm telling you, in the scenario, I am an actual good guy. Okay? So just because I have a scapular somewhere in a box doesn't mean that I have done anything wrong.
No.
And just because I have Catholic douchebag family members that may have done something wrong still doesn't make me a bad person.
No.
So you are assigning me as you are putting me in that same group with those Catholic extremists now
Right.
because of a scapular.
because there's ties
So-
to it.
so-
You don't see the point there?
So
You don't
you're
see
making a religious judgment.
Well, let's be honest.
So it's a
If it was-
Muslim ban.
No, if it was actual Christians that were attacking and then you were tied to these things, I would say maybe hold off on there. That's the point. And the thing is that it's not all Muslims. It's from these areas. That's why the other Muslim countries don't have the ban.
No.
It makes no sense.
Saudi Arabia should have a ban.
They should, but that's never going to happen. We
UAE
have
should
too
have
many-
a ban.
we have
Qatar
way
should
too
have a
much-
ban.
That's great. Okay, that's you saying
So if you
that.
put money into us, then you know we'll also
goes both ways, man.
We'll also bend the rules.
Yeah, that goes
So
both
you're
ways.
just
Democrats
picking
and
and choosing,
Republicans.
and you are banning Muslims.
That is no, because we're not. That goes both ways with Republicans and conservatives. Or I mean, Democrats and conservatives. Both of them are not going to do shit to Saudi Arabia. That's not going to happen.
I
So-
agree with you.
Right. So bringing that up and saying like, oh, well, you have to ban them. It's not going to happen. So that's just a moot
Shouldn't
point.
you?
I would like to see that happen, but it's
Okay.
not going to happen. So
All right.
it's a moot point.
Well, that's fine. No, I agree. It won't happen. But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, if you want to talk about where Muslim extremists come from, Saudi Arabia and the UAE are your number 1 and 2 suspects. Right there.
The
More
government
than
has
Iran,
decided. Both sides
more
of the
than-
government have decided that the economic benefits outweigh the terrorism
So
threats.
what they're basically saying is, we don't actually care about your security. We care about the illusion of your security.
I don't see it that way either. I think that we do.
The
care
number
about-
1 and 2 people on the list of
Yeah.
sponsoring terrorism are left
They've
off
made-
our ban.
I understand. But they-
Okay, so then there's no security from those people.
No, that's totally different because, like I said, they've decided that the economic benefits outweigh the security measures. However, these countries aren't helping us. Iran has never helped us.
So essentially, Iran and Somalia,
Mm-hmm.
if you give us money, we don't care how dangerous you are to our people.
To an extent, I would say so. I think
Okay.
that the government would probably go along with that.
Okay,
if
so
that
then
was
they're
the thing.
picking and choosing what Muslims they leave off the list.
Because it's not Muslims, it's a travel ban. It's from this area.
Unless you're a
they're doing
Christian
it.
or a
Right.
Jew, I would assume.
Right.
I'm sure Israelis can. Well, Israel is
could
always
probably
going to
take
be
them-
on our list.
Right.
Like,
Well,
come
I'm sure
here
they
first.
can. The Israelis will probably take the Jews that are being persecuted. That's not probably going to be our issue.
Christians wrote a letter back to the Donald Trump administration and said, "Nah, we're cool."
Oh, yeah?
So,
I don't think you got a leg to stand on it being a Muslim ban. There's so much evidence to the fact that there's a ton of Muslim countries that are not banned. We're looking at these countries because these are the countries that the government has said has ties. We've come to the agreement that Saudi Arabia is a moot point because of the economic factors.
No, we have not. It's not a moot point.
I think it's a moot point.
It is not. What we've come to the agreement on is that nothing will happen there.
Right.
That's not right. And Saudi Arabia, is a much bigger security risk to the United States than Iran
Doesn't that
is.
defeat your argument, though, by saying that, it's a Muslim ban, but these guys aren't included, therefore it's not a Muslim ban? Because then they would be excluded as well. If it was a purely Muslim ban, here are all the countries that would be excluded. They're not.
No.
Where's your argument?
Okay, what I'm saying, though, is so it's a poor Muslim ban?
No,
is that what it is?
I guess, yeah, if you want to look at it that way.
If you don't benefit my pocketbook, then you're not allowed to come here.
I think you'll find a life loss that usually...
That's fine. That seems like a very Republican principle.
It's a Democratic principle, too. There's no sides on this. If you give us money, we tend to go easy on you. That's the way it's always been.
That's not ethical at all. And especially when you're talking about a country that serves a bigger risk to us than any of the countries on that list. We don't have a Syrian problem. We don't have a Somalian problem. We don't have an Iranian
and we don't have a problem yet.
problem. Yeah, because we're doing a good job. So we don't need to be any more preventative than we already are because we're clearly doing a good job. While terrorism is on the rise in the world, it is not in the United States because obviously our system works.
I don't have any problem with our government saying we want to take a look at it for a certain period of time. It's not like they said a full year. It's not like they said 2 years or 3 years. They said give us 90 days to look it over. That's 90 days. That's a month and a half.
Look it over.
Look it over.
Look it over.
Okay, then there you go.
No ban. Look it over. You don't need a ban to look it over.
You don't necessarily need a ban to look it over.
All you're doing is trying to play to your base. And that's where I have a problem with this, is that it doesn't do anything for our security. It doesn't do anything whatsoever.
That's easy to say because nothing has happened yet.
You make the arguments that, why not be secure? Why not? Because it doesn't do anything. The number 1 and 2 sponsors of terrorism are still out there and still can get their people in here. We're no less safer with this ban than we are without this ban.
That's not necessarily true. If something does happen, if there is a plan,
if something happens, it's going to be some douchebag in his basement in New Jersey that does it.
Well, that's going on a different thing. That's going off homegrown terrorism, which is a different topic. That's not touched by this.
Right. The only problem that we have in the United States, homegrown terrorism, is not touched by this.
Right. So far.
Give yourselves a pat on the back, Republicans. You essentially put up walls to make yourselves feel warm and fuzzy inside.
I still don't see it that way.
Nothing for the security of the United States.
I think that's a short-sighted view of it. I think that there's enough turmoil in the world right now to say we need to take a step back and take a look at these because we're watching all of our allies go through these problems. I understand it's not a problem now, and it's real easy to throw around numbers that say 0 from the past 15 years. But in the end of the day, we need to stay safe and take a look at it. We're not saying this is writ law for the rest of time. We're saying 90 days and take a look at it.
But do you trust that it's a 90-day ban?
I don't know. I don't know what they're going to find out.
I don't, because I don't trust.
I don't inherently trust them either.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think that it's...
I mean, I was pretty sure the phone lines in the White House were supposed to be back on like 2.5 weeks ago. For some reason, they're still down. I don't trust the government.
Well, it's hard to run the government whenever Democrats won't allow the government to start running itself.
You can't get your phone lines back on?
I don't know.
Is that your
I've
argument?
never tried doing
if
it.
Chuck Schumer wasn't crying all the time.
I don't know what they stop and what they don't. I'm just saying he's not getting any friends from the previous administration or from the Democrats in Congress to get this up and running.
That's not how friendship works. You have to earn friendship, and all he has done.
I think Donald Trump's a pretty easy guy to be friends with.
He's only thrown stones.
Everyone, like I said, he always fights back against people who come at him. But I think it's well within knowledge that if you're nice to Donald Trump, he's nice to you. He goes overboard on being nice to you. So, like, maybe it's the Democrats' turn to put out an olive branch every now and again and see if something goes their way instead of just throwing a fit, getting upset, stopping everything.
I will agree that, like, with some things, I think the Democrats need to just, like, loosen up a little bit. But I do think with this, I don't have a problem with this being opposed. I don't.
I don't necessarily have a problem with it being opposed.
Especially
since
I know people with travel visas, and they're affected right now by this. So
you're always going to know someone. That doesn't mean anything,
right? So it does though, because
so Brandon Condit personally knows someone. We have to not do it. Doesn't
make
any sense.
It's not about Brandon Condit, the person. It's about every single person out there that's listening to this knows somebody, that friend that you have that does have a visa that is a exchange student or whatever, right?
From Iran, from
China.
Is China on the list?
No, China's not on the list. But
what's the issue?
Shut up. We'll put a person from Iran there. In my case, it's China. We're not talking about Brandon Condit. We're talking about that student who's at UMSL or at
and
Berkeley.
that really sucks. But that's the way that the world is right now. And I don't think that we can go. That's what the Obama administration loved doing. They'd pick one person out of the crowd and go, look at this little old lady. She gets punched in the tits every day, and that's real sad, and it's your fault. And then that's supposed to somehow negate the fact that we can make our own decisions.
So
there's some people that are going to be affected by this.
So
yes.
we live in a town that has a pretty infamous company that comes out of it, Monsanto, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen the Monsanto campus. I have, because I work down by both of them.
I have a friend that works at Monsanto, so you can't say anything bad
Okay.
about
Is he white?
it. He is.
He's like the only white guy that works there. So, and I'm not saying that Monsanto is a great company or anything like that. I'm not going to debate GMOs right now. But what I
Right.
will say is that scientists come from Egypt, come from Iran, come from Israel, come from these countries that are over there. We're stopping them too.
Well, do you know why they come, right? They come for our colleges.
Terrorism. Probably.
Then shut it down.
Yeah, probably
We will
terrorism.
shut that down. No, they come here for our colleges. And
then
then
they
we send
benefit the United States.
No, because we send them out. We as soon
Have
as
you
they're
seen
there,
the
we kick them
Monsanto
out.
campus? We're not sending them all out. Like every single
If they get the
every
stay
single
and
piece
whatnot.
of corn that you've eaten in the last decade is thanks to an Iranian. so like you're pretending that they serve no benefit.
But you're also coming from the point of the argument that every Iranian is a fucking scientist.
No,
and
I'm
that's not the case.
I'm coming from the
we can
perspective.
get our own scientists. I guarantee you, we have people that are smart enough to make fucking corn for Monsanto in our own country. We don't need the Iranian scientists.
We benefit from foreigners being in our country, from those countries as well. So we are not just putting a stop to the scary, non-existent terrorism problem that we have.
Obviously, we do benefit from people being there. I don't think that it's 100%. Well, if we turned off the valve and no foreigners came in, that America would just crumble. No, I mean, we have people here that can do the same things as well. It's just this guy's smart. He did well in the interview. We take him instead. So I don't think that it's saying, okay, well, now that we have a 90-day ban on Iran, our entire science infrastructure is going to crumble
No,
because
but that's
corn's not being made.
if you're taking it at face value and assuming that it will stay a 90-day ban. I don't assume that it will stay a 90-day ban because
I don't know. With Bannon seemed like he wanted to do this.
Bannon seems like the biggest a-hole in the history of the world. And, you know, I don't know. This is just a push for President Bannon's whole agenda. So, you know,
like I said, I think that there's a lot of with the way that the world is right now, it never stands to be too cautious. And preferably, I would like it if we would just go over there and work with Russia to take out the problem. I don't think that if ISIS was around, we wouldn't have this problem. There wouldn't be a ban. There wouldn't be anything.
I don't think there's going to be a ban. So
I think he'll reword it. I think that he's 100% going to reword that, and it's going to go right through.
I think the states will continue to sue.
Just got to overturn it.
And then they will sue again, and then they can keep it held up in court. And as long as it's held up in court, eventually it'll have to go to the Supreme Court. And if they can get it there before Neil Gorsuch, then it's over anyway.
There's a way to word it. Like, if you can word it properly with the right fact, because all you need is one right fact that says, this is what we've seen.
Just astonishing that they don't have a fact.
Well, I think that the lawyers
reason.
shit the bed. Like, they didn't show up with their game face on. Or, I don't know. I didn't hear the transcripts of the court meeting. It could just be that those judges decided. And that's the real problem with right now is that it's so polarized.
Yeah.
People, especially Democrats, and for the past 8 years, especially Republicans, were just picking their party over their profession.
Yeah,
and they were just going, you know what, fuck it. I disagree with it. So instead of looking at the facts, I'm going to come in with a mindset that it's wrong. And now I'm just going to shut it down.
Yeah.
And that could very well have been what happened in the Ninth Circuit.
It could. Yeah, and I won't disagree with that.
But to be fair, it did sound like the lawyers just did not do a good job of making an argument.
It didn't sound good for the Trump administration.
Right.
It seems
it's a hard argument to make, and even as I sit here trying to make it, because it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
There hasn't been a discernible event that we can all look at and go, "Oh fuck, we should have stopped that."
No, because the argument that your side is making is you might someday get into a car accident, so don't drive. And that's not reasonable.
No, we're doing the car warranty aspect, saying at some point we're going to get broken down, so let's just take care of it.
Right, but you and I, who have both sold car warranties, know that's a bullshit pitch.
99% of the time, but that 1%, they really, really like us.
Like
they totally are on board.
Wait, you don't have a receipt? We're not paying for anything. kidding.
1 mile over on that oil change.
There's
Go fuck
loopholes
yourself.
all around. No, we'll just keep the ban.
Yeah. There are. So, like I said, again, got to reiterate, I don't agree with the ban per se, but I do agree that
Which,
it's,
if you listen to like 10 minutes ago, I did get him to say that he does agree with the ban, and I did that on purpose.
I didn't know because I don't 100%. I agree with their right to do it. I think that the government has the ability to put in the ban in order, as long as it's for the 90-day period or whatever period they want to do, to review things. I think that's well within a government's right and an administration's right to make sure that
I think reviewing
it
things
meets their
is
standards.
absolutely within the right of the government. I
Right.
don't think you need a ban to do it.
I don't think you necessarily do, but I also don't feel that I'm in the position to know more than the generals and everyone else. That's
Donald
looking
Trump
at,
is.
Yeah, well, he is now because he's commander in chief, so he actually is in the position to know
I am
that.
too.
So,
So,
run for president, and then you can be the commander in chief.
I will not run for president. I have a Facebook and a MySpace account, so I will not. Like, I'm sure that hopefully that MySpace is like doesn't even exist anymore. But
I can't. I forgot my password, so I can't even get in to delete. The
so that means
horribleness
it's
that's
there, and
Oh, it's
somebody
there.
can pull it up.
Yeah.
So I will not run. I will not run for office. I will just yell at people who do.
Right.
But
So again, we'll see.
yeah, I mean,
I think
that's fair.
I try to be. So I think that I think he's gonna reword it. I think that it's gonna, in some way, shape, or form, get through. But I do have to admit that I thought it wasn't gonna be this big of a deal to get it. I thought that he was pretty much standing on solid ground, and apparently not,
Yeah.
according to the Ninth Circuit Court. So
I didn't know.
So we'll see.
I didn't know if he was standing on solid ground. I'm glad to find out that he wasn't, because I don't think
That's
this
what 3
was,
people said. So
But
keep that in mind.
But we'll see. I mean, and the thing is, this will be up again. We'll be talking about this again, if not next week, the week after.